surprised if these are both undefeated players.
Yep. James Rynkiewicz, I believe, is on probably on the same band deck that he was on for the Grand Prix.
Right. And that was the Force of Will Free band.
Yeah, I believe so. If you want to check the pairings, we can actually figure out where they are, probably.
Table 2.
Yeah,
that's
undefeated. I wonder how far the undefeateds go down. 120 or 200. I can do the math, or I cannot do the math.
Are you going to make Pascal's triangle there and try to wiggle it on down?
It's too many rounds. I don't want to go. I did it once. I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to JSS Chance. It's a 16 round event. Let's do this. I spent like hours like laying out this giant triangle on like 16 rounds. I'm just like, ugh.
One of the things about doing Pascal's triangle is that it doesn't take into account draws.
Oh God, I know.
For those of you who don't know, if you've got a certain number of players in an event, you can kind of figure out where people will be, how many people will be at each of the records at a certain point in the tournament. But Pascal's triangle works in binary choices, win, lose.
Yeah.
And it doesn't actually figure in draws, so you have to be a little bit cautious about how you apply that when you're trying to make your drawing decisions. I definitely know people who have incorrectly used Pascal's triangle to try to figure out whether they should draw or not, and drawn themselves out.
Well, the standings are sitting right there for them to check.
Yeah.
I was talking with, I think Chris Mascioli about this, about how no one's really, like, people write about, oh, this is how you look at standings, but no one's really, like, people write all these articles, but, like, they never really explain, like, some of the more, like, intricate, weird scenarios that come up that, you never figure out until, like, you've lived through them.
Absolutely. Well, one of the things, I actually think that the best person I've seen for standings, and there's probably other people that are similar to this, are scorekeepers and people that do tournament coverage. Yeah. So Glenn Jones, his predictive powers on tiebreaks, really, really good. Certain scorekeepers, really, really good. Now, the thing is, don't ask your scorekeeper at a tournament you go to, hey, can I draw?
They'll be like,
they can't tell you. They're not allowed.
But your friend who's playing, who's also a scorekeeper.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like you were saying, the math itself actually can be a little bit fuzzy, but just the gut experience of seeing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of top eights.
There's a lot of weird things where, like, this match plays out. Do these people draw? Do you draw here? What happens if, these guys play it out and these guys win first, and then these guys are like, oh, well, they're down 2 tables down and they're done, so we're going to draw. Yeah. Which, as long as you don't, ask outside the, like, if you don't go to extreme lengths of asking people what the results of the match were, you can just observe and see, oh, they're done. Well, let's.
You've got to be very cautious about any kind of outside information.
Yeah.
You don't want, for example, let's pretend that I'm playing an opponent and you're playing next to me, and there's some result. If I say to you, hey, what happened? That can be asking for outside information. So,
but if you just look and you see, they're signing the match, and you're like, well, they played their match out. Would you like to draw?
Right.
That's fine. I had an interesting one with outside information, actually at the Star City in DC. Last round, 7:01. Everyone's sitting down for their match, about to sit down for their matches. I tell the other undefeated to draw with his zoo opponent because it's good in the mirror. Because it was Mary Jacobson, she had low lines and stuff. Well, he had bigger guys. And because he was sitting down at his table, he was in his match, and I was giving outside assistance. Got a match loss. Into top 8.
This is similar to, let's pretend that you're walking up to your pairing in the middle of a round, right? And you say to your friend, hey, what's Ari playing? They can tell you, but if you sit down...
Once you are sitting at your table, you're in a match.
Yes.
So, be sure to run around and ask your friends before you're sitting down and before they are sitting down.
I mean, one of the things you don't want to be doing is you don't want to be breaking the rules of the game. And that's not just the rules like, oh, how does Magic work? That's the rules like, how does a tournament rules work?
Yes.
Yeah, breaking the rules of how Magic works, that's a big no-no.
Yeah.
If your opponent has a sharpshooter, something dies, they can't not untap it. If they've got a shrine, they can't not put a token on it. They're not allowed.
I really want to know what, I asked Tom Lapildis in Nagoya and wanted to know, how intentional was it to make the shrines mandatory? Because, they always talk about this Phyrexian feel of, making things feel, weird and off and unusual. And, when you first hear, oh, my opponent forgot the shrine, and they're like, oh, let's go back and do this. It's like, oh, really? That's what's happening? So, it looks like James has added 2 Force Wills. Oh, he's on No Rug actually now.
That is our, I believe, 3rd time seeing No Rug.
No Rug's very popular this week. It's probably the interaction between, a lot of these lists have days that's really good against Hivemind. Showing it Progenitus sometimes beats Hivemind too. Like, they go for the Emrakul. Progenitus sometimes races if you have enough permanents.
Absolutely. And then the other part, too, is you could have nibbled them away with a hit from Tarmogoyf.
Yeah.
And then have the
power unblockable,
here you go.
dead.
Boom.
Protection from everything includes giant Cthulhu gods.
Yep, this is true.
And Tim Pskowski is on, appropriately for his Callblade win, Blue-White Fairies with Stoneforge Mystic, Spellstarter Sprite, Vendilion Click. He has Fire and Ice, Feast and Famine, and Batterskull as his tutor package, Ancestral Visions as his card draw, and his counter package, as I said, Sprite, Force, and Misstep with some Jaces. He's playing Riptide Lab.
Riptide Lab with Spellstarter Sprite and Vendilion Click. Just
Stoneforge
fabulous.
Mystic being an Artificer. Yeah. And he is beautiful too.
Yeah.
This is a lot like the old extended deck, where Riptide Lab locked a lot of people out in that format. Interesting choice. James has 2 Ponder in his sideboard. Presumably that's for matchups where he wants to have more natural orders, but isn't going to fully commit to, I guess, personal tutoring for them maybe. But he has 2 more Ponders in his sideboard for natural orders, I'm assuming.
I mean, in a sense, they're kind of like weak brainstorms, right?
I mean, he has the 4 brainstorms, 2 Ponders, just wants a bit more dig when he needs to hit that Progenitus.
Right. And, I mean, also more blue spells is a little bit of Force of Will bait for his 2 Force of Wills.
That's true. Might just want to board in the Ponders if he's supporting, because he only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17. He does have the right number of blue cards to support enough Force of Wills. So, I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. He's only running 1 Dried Arbor. That's what you were a bit more used to.
When you looked up, I believe, either AJ or perhaps Alex,
yep.
They had 2. So maybe the second Dryad Arbor is just becoming something that's showing itself to be more useful.
Yeah. Alex had 2. Both people on top of the Seattle had 2. So I want to see where that trend goes. We saw 2 in that feature match. So, maybe we'll see 2 again. Maybe James Rynkiewicz will, have some reason for 1.
Go James with a Noble Hierarch facing off with Tim. Tim has Flooded Strand. Never mind, they got it.
I'm expecting to see Ancestral Vision suspended on 1. This was the whole debate we were having, Visions versus Standstill, and, we'll see how Visions does this game.
Right. Well, I mean, Visions is sometimes not good enough.
Yeah.
But in general, I think the only decks I like Standstill in are decks that can commonly have a clock on the table.
Sure. I think that maybe with Stoneforge being the deck is a little different than the Drew Levin one. I think that the other thing
That's a very different thing, yeah.
Yeah,
very,
I think
very
the other
different.
thing is that as decks move to things that are going to trump a Batterskull, like the Knight of the Reliquary, Standstill gets a lot better because you Stoneforge...
Main phase Vendilion Click.
Yeah.
That is the click, right?
Yep. Another deck with a lot of foils, it looks like, on both sides. Isn't it Ancestral Visions?
I see a Mental Misstep. I think that's...
Is that a
What is
Judge
that?
Foil Vendilion Click on the left?
I can't tell. The art is
I see
obscured.
his own Vendilion Click, a Swords, a Misstep, and what I think is a Judge Foil Vendilion Click, but I have not really taken a good look at that art yet, so I'm going to do that right now.
Now, James is the kind of player who, at Star City Games Boston, I think really showed me how he approaches the game. He and his friend had sat down in an empty room. It was the night before the tournament, and they had just been practicing the High Tide Mirror for a couple of hours.
Oh,
Like,
that mirrors.
that is not a pleasant mirror to play.
No.
And so that gives you a sense of the kind of way that James approaches the game. He's like, yeah, I've got a couple hours to kill. Let's sit down and play High Tide against each other.
Yeah, I don't
Very
know.
deliberate, very much going to spend a lot of energy making sure that he's playing the best game he can.
Can you see what that top card is?
Really, it's hard for me to tell with some of these things. That's the swords that he's getting rid of, but what's he keeping? Mental Misstep and cards that are hard for me to see with even our good cameras here for that.
That might be a Judge Foil Wasteland. I can't really tell.
It looked like a land to me.
Yeah, it was a land for sure. So Visions ticks down to 3.
I'd just like to walk you through what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be starting off with the draft. This draft will be called. For those of you who
We get a Mutavault, is that maybe? What is a lab? Is that a lab?
No, I think that's the Wasteland.
The Judge Foil Wasteland, okay. Perhaps.
Might also be a Delta. I don't know if they changed the art on those.
It's really hard to tell. 4th land here from James Rynkiewicz. Attacking for 3 here.
we'll be passing out small pieces of paper that will let you know where you're going to be seated.
Passes with a Daze in hand, and looks like a counter spell in hand. Ancestral Visions ticks down.
We have 64 players in this draft open.
Down comes a Polluted Delta.
We will come to the top 8, and there will be an additional top 8 draft. Once that draft is over, top
Tim says go.
At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Coach Steve.
The end of the turn, there's a potential for a Brainstorm plus a fetch, but James's hand actually looks like it could be pretty good. Tim, during upkeep, sacrifices the fetch land, trying to make a stifle a little bit more painful for James if James wants to do it, because it'll be on his own turn. Casting a Vendilion Click of his own, tapping out. James, I believe, does have a both Daze and Counterspell in hand.
Jesse Poparka. Jesse Poparka, if you're in the room, please report your pod draft open. Jesse Poparka.
Here we see, yeah, Daze, Brainstorm, Counterspell, Bolt. Hard cast the Daze. He could even just actually, just 1 mana float and, yeah, do the alternate cost just to spend less actual mana. Not a big deal for him to let that happen. Draws his card for the turn. Lays the Tropical Island once again, or is about to. Attacks with Vendilion Click. Knocking Tim to, oh, before he attacks.
Green Sun Zenith,
Green Suns
possibly.
for 2, maybe getting a Kasali Pride Mage?
Wrong deck. You're thinking of the
Oh,
bad
yeah.
deck.
You're right, my bad.
Getting a Tarmogoyf.
Tarmogoyf.
That is the Judge Photo Wasteland.
Attacks for 3.
4. There's a Noble Hierarch actually hiding there under those lands, I think.
There's a Noble Hierarch in there?
Yeah, it looks like it, I think.
With the glare, I can't tell.
Yeah.
You know, I think you're correct, because he cast on turn 2, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And down spins the Ancestral Vision.
All right, players, we have everyone, and we're ready to
Tim
begin.
lays a Flooded Strand.
Looks like he has the Batter Skull in his hand. Not really where he wants it.
Draw. Go ahead.
Looks like James has a Brainstorm that he's just holding on to here. Tarmogoyf gets in there with the Vendilion Click. He gets Swords.
Brainstorm, Lightning Bolt, and what other cards in there? Green Sun,
Suns,
Zenith.
and something else. So that, let's see, Swords is going to make him gain,
Creature, instant,
Instant, land. I think 3.
is there a
the
Ponder?
Ponder? Don't remember. That is, that's the Vendilion Click, I believe. Yep.
Wow.
Very different looking art.
These alternate art cards make it a little bit harder to call
Yeah,
the match.
So, Legend Duel for that Vendilion Click possibly coming down.
There's the one mystery card in James's hand. It's another blue card, and I can't quite figure out what it is. Casts or fetches in response to that Vendilion Click. Gets a Volcanic Island.
Yeah. That is not a legal choice, actually.
It's only legal if Vendilion
Yeah.
Click is in play.
There's 2 Vendilion Clicks. Legend Rule applies before either player has priority. Oh,
Okay,
Spellstutter Sprite. Oh,
Is that what that is?
yes.
Aha! Yay for alternate art, making things confusing.
Too many new arts. Okay, so there we go. That's what's going on. Okay. Now that we've confirmed exactly which promo cards are being played, James is resolving this brainstorm after fetching, which is a bit unfortunate, but something he's probably going to have to accept here because the fetch gave him the red mana. Looks like he has, let's see, I'm seeing that right, yep, Grim Lavamancer in hand, Lightning Bolt in hand, another Vendilion Click to replace the one currently in play, and a Brainstorm. And I think he's hiding, looks like some red spells being hidden. So Tim behind because of the mental misstep, mental misstep damage pushes him further towards dead, but definitely not behind. That vision is going to go off real soon, and James doesn't have too much of an offense right here. Ancestral Vision is going to go on the stack right here. James looking at a hand of Brainstorm, Vendilion Click, and Lightning Bolt has no response. Tim draws a Force Will, Mutavault, another Spellstutter Sprite, and let's see, he might Wasteland that Volcanic Island, keep James off of red. Brainstorming with a fetch land. Looks like he drew Island and can't see what the rest were, but presumably with that full grip can find something to put back. Let's see. Yeah, I'd probably Wasteland the red source. James, I believe, missed a land drop in there too. Yep, there comes the Wasteland. James draws the Grim Lavamancer that he hid, but no longer has the mana to cast. Presumably debating between brainstorming into a land or just having Vendilion Click up. Probably going to draw step Vendilion Click or wait till end of turn, depending on how much he fears a counterspell. It's probably reasonable to assume that Tim doesn't have any huge threats. You know, a Jace will come down, but the Vendilion Click can take care of that pretty easily. So he doesn't actually have to fear anything that Tim's going to do as main phase. Just wait till end step, make Tim use his mana. Yep, there's a Stoneforge Mystic. I can see this getting, well, it can get Fire Ice or Feast and Famine or Batter Skull. Yep, there's the Fire and Ice. Presumably just trying to connect to make a quicker clock, and more importantly, feels that him drawing cards is going to lock out James more than James discarding cards, because James already low on cards. Tim's got a lot of counters in his deck, including Spellstutter Sprite. Vendilion Click goes on the stack for James. Tim thinks about whether he wants to Force Will that, I believe. James can represent natural order off of drawn lands, so yep, uses the Force, pitching a Spellstutter Sprite. Goes to 7 life, getting closer and closer to burn range. Though James does not have a red source. James can Green Sun Zenith for Tarmogoyf here, or another Noble Hierarch, but I think Tarmogoyf just want the threat as opposed to the mana here, because even though you can draw a natural order, Tarmogoyf hits are going to be just as lethal.
Is his hand Brainstorm, Green Sun, Zenith, Grim Lava, Mancer, Lightning Bolt?
Yes.
Okay.
Brainstorm's also pretty good.
To me, this looks to me like a classic main phase Brainstorm.
Yeah. Especially because he can Green Suns after regardless. Maybe getting an Olahark isn't the best, but getting in for 2 with that Hierarch, nope, just chooses to go for the Tarmogoyf. Yeah, because the sword is going to... Yeah, he does... He's short. Yeah, next turn if he plays the land, he does have enough to put the sword on the Mutavault and crash in. So if he gets a Noble, he's going to chump block. But if he gets the Tarmogoyf, that block is going to be profitable. If I counted correctly, I think there's creature, instant, sorcery from visions. That's what it is. Land. There we go.
Brainstorm end of turn.
Yep.
Flooded Strand in play, so Tim can turn this into quasi-ancestral recall.
There's a Swords for Tim. So if Tim has an untapped land, it's pretty easy for him to... Oh, we could also just shoot up the Stoneforge Mystic. There we go. He doesn't have to Stoneforge the sword in play. But Tim can pretty easily just swords down this Tarmogoyf through a daze even, actually. He just EOT fetches a land, swords it, can pay for daze, untaps, and then doesn't have to worry about daze on the sword if he has a land, or if he just if he has a land, he can either Stoneforge it onto the Mutavault for +1 damage, but having to pay to re-equip, or just equip it to the Stoneforge.
And a turn fetch.
Yep.
Could bode ill for James. And there it is.
Yep, that's the swords that we were just talking about. Takes the Tarmogoyf out. Puts James up a few more life, but a few Swords hits will not only take all that away, but just establish Tim's hand to a point where James can no longer win. Tim draws. Cast Sword.
Sword.
James doesn't have the daze.
Just think about all of the card
Tim
advantage that's
cracks
about
him.
to happen here. Boom. Draw a card. Kill your Noble Hierarch.
Yep. Tim was fairly low on cards for having resolved divisions. I didn't realize that. James,
Main phase Brainstorm.
Yep, trying to find some kind of answer.
And now the Bolt is not good enough to stop to try to kill that Stoneforge.
Yeah.
Pro red.
James decides to keep some.
Tim is at 6.
He might have 2 lightning bolts in hand, so.
He can go Grim Lava Mancer.
No, it's 2 lightning bolts.
Is it 2 bolts?
Yep. Bolt you now.
Yeah, he's like, wait a second, I'm just going to shoot you and see what happens.
Yep.
Okay, that resolved? Okay, cool.
Classic
Next
red
turn,
spells.
I hope I don't lose this bolt in my hand.
It looks like Tim drew a Swords, so that's going to stop this plan pretty well. He can Swords his own Stoneforge Mystic or his Mutavault and just kill it off. And that looks like a mental misstep too, so he has a bunch of options as to how to answer this Lightning Bolt plan. Yeah, from here it should be pretty easy for him to mop up, especially with the Stoneforge Mystic finding, yep, Batterskull.
That card's okay.
Yeah, it's reasonable. Only was one of the contributors to the to Stoneforge being banned in Standard.
Batterskull. That's another card that makes me angry.
Yeah, I remember playing the Twin Blade deck, and it was just started with War and Peace, cut it, added a second Batterskull, had a Feast and Famine, was just going to cut it for another spell because we never got anything but Batterskull. So James is pretty much committed to throwing the other bolt at the face here, I think. Debating what other options he has right here. Maybe he can natural order somewhere along the line to win, but doesn't have the mana. Can maybe Green Suns for a Tarmogoyf, but... Yep, I guess he's going to choose that. Maybe try and bait the swords out of his hand to clear the way for the bolt to be lethal.
I mean, the thing that's really nice about this play is that the Tarmogoyf is sufficiently large that it can't simply be Sword of Fire and Ice through. And that means that it's possible that Tim might use a Swords to Plowshares on that Tarmogoyf,
Right.
giving Tim less ways to stop the Lightning Bolt.
Yeah.
He still will have the mental misstep, but
Tim can also just flash in the, well, not flash, but main phase Batter Skull, suit it up with a sword, and that's going to be bigger than that Goy. Nope. Chooses to let James just go ahead. There's a Noble Hierarch in play. Gonna pump up that Tarmogoyf so it needs to be blocked.
wow,
Ooh.
this could summon the mental misstep. It's like, I got 3 life. Mental misstep's pretty good.
Yeah.
Mental misstep.
To make it a 5/6.
Tarmogoyf swings. Tries to eat something.
Probably just gonna munch on a Mutavault or that Stoneforge Mystic.
Yep, the extraneous Mystic, which is going to bring a Batterskull down the turn after. Respond to the Germ.
That's a Spellstutter Sprite and a concession.
Wow.
Okay, so Blue-White Fairies takes down game 1 on the back of regaining every bit of advantage it had lost when James had his only red source wastelanded and was stuck with some red cards in hand after a Brainstorm did not get shuffled away.
James was just incredibly close
Yeah.
to being able to take that open.
Yeah, just the Visions Resolve gave him a few more options and just kind of let him reestablish a board control with that Stoneforge Mystic.
James definitely has access to Pyroblast. Ancient Grudge is another consideration versus
Yes.
all of the
Equipment.
Stoneforge Mystic equipment.
Same with Trigon Predator.
Trigon Predator is great.
As is that Umazawa's Jite?
It is Jite.
I can see Jite against this deck being awesome.
I mean,
So I think those would both be reasonable situations where you want to make your Progenitors your A game.
the one kind of question I see, if you are boarding in Pyroblast, Jite, and maybe Trigon Predator, is Force of Will something that you want to consider? I mean, like,
I can definitely see Force of Will coming out in this matchup. I don't think that, at the very least, I don't think James wants it. Tim might need it to stop Natural Order, but I think Jace the Mind Sculptor is the only card that really scares James out of this Fairies deck. He doesn't know if Tim actually has it even, because he has all these Fairies. What did he cut to fit them in? So I think we will see James cutting Force of Will going to this game, especially given his history with not having Force of Wills in his main of the deck at the Grand Prix. So shuffling up for the next game. Let's see. What is Tim going to board out here? Maybe some Force of Wills. Probably don't want all of them.
he's got a lot of great weapons here. I kind of wonder about whether or not 3 Jace is as valuable against a deck that has clocks, clicks, bolts.
I think I like Jace in this matchup.
4 mana is a lot of mana.
But I think this matchup comes down to a bit of a grind, and I think you want Jace to kind of... It's a real finisher, you know? It's not just like, I kind of hit you with... No, even Batterskull gets trumped by Progenitus or a Goy, you know? Jace gets you out of everything. But I can actually see all the forces coming out, because Wrath of God can act as the Natural Order cover. Though, actually, he doesn't have any other way to deal with the Progenitus. No other counterspells for Natural Order. We'll see. We'll see. Maybe some forces come out for Wrath. Maybe don't port in all the Path to Exiles because it's only Tarmogoyf coming, or Tarmogoyf being the threat here. I don't really necessarily want to Path, let's see, maybe Vendilion Click, no, not the best. Let's see. Looks like James is considering his hand. Doesn't look too happy about it. His eyes spread up a little bit. He's gonna mulligan.
Yep. I was kind of curious if that was a big show. Like, you know, is James doing the Drew Levin School of Acting? Like, tapping the table, serious face, keep.
Snap, keep, not straw, obviously. let's see.
New hand.
Tim's going to keep his hand, it looks like. In a matchup that's fairly dominated by card advantage, that's pretty important.
James opens up with look like land go.
Yep.
Tim, in response, says also land potentially go. Yep. And
yep.
James,
Basic island
land
on
go.
Tim's side. Yep. I think this favors the fairies deck. I mean, they both have Vendilion Click, but
Spellstarter Sprite is a real card in this matchup. Vendilion Click is in both decks, but I think there's more hardcore actual power cards in Tim's deck if it goes for the slow game.
Tim opts to wasteland James's Trop that he plays. James follows up with a Volk.
Fetches. He's going to lay perhaps a Tarmogoyf or maybe a Green Suns for 1.
Get a Noble Hierarch rather than a Dryad Arbor so it can't be wastelanded.
Perhaps.
Though he doesn't know that Tim's deck doesn't have days, so he might want to play around that.
Umezawa's Jite.
Ooh, that is a good one to stick here. We were just talking about that one in boarding, and that card can take over. Tim's deck has, you know, a lot of, well, all of its win conditions are fairly creature-based. You know, it's pretty hard to get a Batterskull to play without a Stoneforge, and Stoneforge is not getting active through a Jite.
Force of Will gets the Tarmogoyf. Noticeably, that land there represents a Dryad Arbor that the Jite can hop onto.
Yep. That is true. That Force of Will, he left them in. I guess he does respect the natural order plan a little bit, or at least enough to leave that in, which is reasonable. Tim fetches a Tundra.
And this is probably going to be a Mystic.
Yep. Which at the least forces Dryad Arbor to die in combat if it's going to pick up the Jite. Unless James has a Lightning Bolt, which it looks like he does. Looks like a lot of red cards flipping through his hand very fast. That might just be 3 Lightning Bolts. I think it is.
Judge Bill or Judge Andre to the registration stage. Judge Bill or Judge Andre.
So I think he just fetches Dryad Arbor on that step so it's not summoning sick, and then weighs his option on his main phase. Especially because Tim doesn't have a white mana up.
No white mana up, no Mutavault.
Yep. Only thing he can do here is Dismember.
And what James needs to make this full play work out, if he goes the path we say, Dryad Arbor, and then he needs a land to be able to equip the Dryad Arbor and bolt the Mystic. And at that point, the game could very well be over.
I think he just leads on, I think Jace might be able to give this game a little bit of juice on Tim's side, you know. Can come back with that pretty easily. But that would definitely negate any kind of creature win condition that he's going to try and execute. So if James draws a land, he's just going to bolt the Mystic, see if it gets misstepped. If it doesn't, it was not that. He might just swing with the Dryad Arbor. Might just get the Mystic out of there, get some Jite counters up. Because that Jite counter is going to kill... Nope, just chooses to bolt it. That looks like a misstep coming down. Choosing to pay the 2 life and not get dazed. Oh, more bolts. And a Noble Hierarch. Tim does have the Jace we were talking about. Tim's going to look at his hand and try and figure out how to best balance this Jace against this Jite and see where that race is going. Probably just going to brainstorm here.
Upping it doesn't seem like
especially
great.
After 2 Lightning Bolts have been
Bouncing it
used
doesn't
here.
seem great because, I mean, the
Dryad
Hierarch
Arbor's still
or
gonna
the
get it.
Dryad Arbor can do it because the Hierarch can just come back down. Ah, there. That's nice.
Swords on the Hierarch, passing the turn back. James draws a Tarmogoyf, which he's probably going to play. Establish a real threat as opposed to just this Dryad Arbor. Especially because the Dryad Arbor, if he's going to establish it as a threat, has to attack with Jite into those Mutavaults, which is not what he wants.
Tarmogoyf.
And Mutavault animated to get Spellstutter Sprite to try and hit 2, but Lightning Bolt's going to crush that dream a little bit. If Tim has another land, I think we see him bouncing the J or bouncing the. Does not have the other land, so he's going to brainstorm. What I was saying is he would bounce the Goyf with Jace, making the Dryad Arbor trade with Spellstutters right there. And James loses his turn, letting Jace establish. Or if he replays Tarmogoyf, you know, you're just fighting the same Jace bounce. You know, I get to untap and you don't, right? Looks like Tim drew a Swords for that Tarmogoyf, which was a very crucial draw. And a fetch lane, nice.
Wow.
So Tim definitely in control of this game right now, but James does not have cards in hand. Tim does have, well, he's probably shuffling the Batterskull away now that Stoneforge is dead.
Right. I mean, it's a great card, but it costs a lot to put into play fairly.
Yep.
And he is a smart water drinker, so he's going to play it smart.
James debating whether he wants to get the GT active.
I mean, 2 counters on a GT is not terrible.
No, it keeps, especially because here, if he blocks with Mutable, it kills Mutable and Sprite. So if he blocks with Sprite, he just leaves 2 counters on the GT and just kind of chills there and prevents anything from happening. Prevents a Mystic from getting up, prevents everything. James just opts to equip Dryad Arbor with the GT.
Now, leaving the red open to indicate that he has a burn spell in his hand to discourage perhaps him from doing something.
There's been 3 lightning bolts used this game. I don't really see that happening. It's also possible that Tim was afraid of Dazes the first time on the Jace, which is also reasonable. Let's see. Yeah. My question is, does Tim play this Jace if he doesn't draw a land, or does he want to wait? He can wait against the GT, but we will see. Yeah, may as well. I mean, James only had 1 turn to top deck a Daze. Like, he's got it, he's got it. Whatever. Jace resolves, and that is going to bounce that Dryad Arbor, I'm pretty sure. Can brainstorm. With the sprite up, yeah.
Bouncy, bouncy. In for 1. Burns Tim to the face, redirected to the Jace.
That is all 4 lightning bolts for James.
Okay, he cannot tap that Dryad Arbor. Dryad Arbor is sick.
But yeah, there we go. Figured it out.
There we go.
Looks like Tim drew a Sprite. I would probably not swing with the Sprite. I'd rather leave GT counters facing down a Mutavault than have them all trade off. Especially because you're looking to have a lot of mana, because you can Stoneforge, have him kill it with the GT, and then have 5 mana for the battle.
Does he have a green Sun Zenith in hand?
Looks like a Vendilion and another G. Let's see. All 4 lightning bolts, all 4 fire and lightning deck foils, I believe. Just looking at these decks is pretty nice.
My preferred lightning bolt is unlimited lightning bolt.
I really like the M11 one with no flavor text, just very simple 3.
Right.
So
And it comes for 1.
Dryad Arbor crashes in there. Trades with the Spellstutter Sprite, but GT gets active. And for those of you who played during GT's reign in Standard, active GT for any kind of creature interaction is almost just completely unfair and lopsided game. Looks like James has a Vendilion Click.
Go just happened there for those fast turns. Main phase Brainstorm.
Yep, James looks like he had a Vendilion Click, a GT, and 1 other card going into that, a Misstep. So Brainstorm's on the stack. Tim's gonna Spellstutter, or he's got a Misstep, there we go. He's got a Spellstutter Sprite. Oops, shows you have the Misstep. James is in a situation where if he lets the Sprite resolve and lets the trigger resolve, the Brainstorm's going to get countered regardless, because removing a counter to kill the Sprite, he animates the Mutavault. No removing Sprites in play counters the Brainstorm regardless. So James decides that he'd rather not let the 2/2 live, rather let the 1/1 live. And Tim
in for 1.
Yep, Ancestral Visions, I believe, ticks to 3. James draws, still stuck off of the lands he needs. Visions to 2. And he needs to assemble something fast before this Ancestral Vision goes off. Tim punches in for 1 again. Plays a polluted, dealt in, passes.
James just needs to get some kind of action besides having a defensive GT in play.
He does have a Vanillion in hand, so...
Now he's got the mana to cast it, doesn't he?
Yep.
Is that, what?
That's a Misty.
And that's a Volcanic, and yeah, so he's got 2 blue
Yeah.
if he wants it.
The problem being the Tiger kept him off of it when he had the Dry
Yep.
Daughter in play.
Tropical, one of my favorite lands.
Yep. Let's see. Probably going to try and time this Vendilion quick at some point here. In draw step. Maybe upkeep.
All right, draft open players. Take a quick look to the center.
Tim asking who the target is, because James has a lot of cards he hasn't been casting for a while. Shipping the GT.
Extra GT goes away.
Please take a look at that sheet.
Using Vendilion Click as the lesser known 3 mana cycler that is. Yep.
Plus 3 cards.
James
Plus-
was responding to the visions being cast, I believe.
Yep.
So Tim resolves visions, and this game gets interesting.
Land, another, to go up to 7 lands for Tim. Mutavault activated.
Gets in there, baiting the GT counters, but probably it's going to be a 2 free damage.
Takes
Has
2.
to.
James has got a lot of life to work with here.
Yeah, and he has that GT, so looks like James has a lot of Vendilion Clicks in hand.
If he equips this GT and a Swords doesn't cause him any problems, that Click plus GT is going to be just so dominating.
Yes. GT, once it gets going, no way to beat it with creatures.
Unless they're like Progenitus or,
No.
you know,
Yeah.
fake creatures like Progenitus.
And we're cool, those kind of guys. I've seen GT beat some of the, 8-drop guys before. Just like some giant monsters. So
There is a...
GT is going to bump up to 3, kill
Yep.
the sprite before blocks, and Tim's going to take 3.
Noble
Second
Hierarch
main
after
Noble
combat.
Hierarch. Interesting.
It's a mental misstep.
Maybe he was playing around Daze. I think he might have a misstep in hand for the Force.
I'm not sure why he might hold back. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think he has a misstep and didn't want to get dazed is what it was. So this looks like a Jace the Mind Sculptor. Probably going to bounce that
Ooh.
Vendilion Click.
It never feels too exciting to bounce a Vendilion Click.
I mentioned this at one earlier point. I've been in a scenario where I've had my opponent at 3 life, and they've had a Caracas that has to bounce my Vendilion Click every turn, and they died really miserably that game.
Main phase Brainstorm. Mental misstep for a mana.
Yep.
It means that James is unlikely to be able to cast that Click.
I think
Oh,
James misstepped back.
Misstep back, good. Main phase Brainstorm is one of the secret best ways to use a Brainstorm. You get
There's a Pyroblast for that Jace, too. Jace down. And Ponder.
A very active turn for James. Tim looks like he's exhausted his Ancestral Visions build-up to almost nothing.
He has a lot of lands in play here. Interesting note, it looks like he's gone from the typical 4 wastelands, I think, to 3 so he can support this Riptide Laboratory. Which, I don't know how that affects this matchup, but I think the 4 wastelands might be better against this 3-color mana base.
Ponder finishes resolving. He passes the turn back to Tim.
James chose to shuffle out the Ponder. Looks like he drew a Swords and has a Force of Will in hand.
Plays his, what is that, 9th land?
Yep.
Tim says go, or James says go.
10th including the Wasteland in the graveyard.
Another Force of Will? End of turn. Summons a 5 casting cost Force of Will with a Vendilion Click.
Yep. Good old real cast Force of Will.
Tapu.
I went actual years playing that card without ever seeing that.
Please raise your hand while judge and we'll be around to collect.
Noble Hierarch.
Also a threat.
Says go, leaves mana open.
Yeah, that GT makes every single creature that is going to hit play for James a huge threat.
Swords. Mental misstep for 2 life. Force of will. Cast
Counterspell.
card.
An original counterspell, or I believe that's the F&M promo one. Cast right back. And James gets his threat online.
This is why he did not activate that GT right away. He wanted to be able to fight a counter war to protect the Noble Hierarch carrying it. I actually thought that this game was likely to be over when that Ancestral Vision resolved. And
James was just able to reestablish a creature, get that Vendilion click going. Or the GT going
yes,
with the Vendilion click on.
the GT has been driving the way that this game has played.
Yep. That card typically dominates when creatures have to fight.
Yep.
And Jace has not been long for this world in this matchup, so...
I think Jace has come down on the table twice, and both times has died immediately. And both times the Jace has not been able to brainstorm to any real effect. It had
Bounce
to
a
bounce,
threat,
and it needed to do it both times.
Yep. I think the first time there might have been a reason, like it might have been an argument to brainstorm, but...
It was an argument at least.
Yeah, but it was really marginal. Like, if the Jace dies, you're just dead if you don't bounce.
Batterskull from Tim, an Ancient Grudge from James.
Probably going to result in the bounce Batterskull in response. And we're going to see a face-off of 2 busted equipment here. Does Tim even have 3 lands left in his deck to fetch?
Apparently.
There we go.
I guess they're still in there.
Yeah. He has a total of 8 lands that he can fetch, and I think they are all in play. Every single land that he can fetch is in play right now.
James attacks with the Noble Hierarch coming in for a big one. Does he pump it? Yep, he does pump
And
it.
that is lethal.
There we go.
That was
he had
exactly
that many
11.
tokens? Wow.
5 counters and the
realize.
Noble Hierarch +1. And going to game 3. So we've seen Ancient Grudge from James as a sideboard card. Counterspell. Trigon Predator might be coming in, might not, but we'll see what happens when he Green Sun Zenith this game. Pyroblast for sure comes in, as does GT. And, Pyroblast, marginal difference can be misdirected. But, I don't know why I chose that over Red Blast.
An important thing to note is that unless they've been given an extension, and I don't think they have, they're down to under 4 minutes for this game.
Oh, wow. Maybe a small extension for the feature match, but I don't know. This might just be a draw. That game took a long time to resolve.
I mean, if anything, this favors James by a lot, because it is possible he could just
turn 3
Progenitus. Well, not the Progenitus, but cast the natural order to get the Progenitus.
I don't think I've ever seen someone hard cast Progenitus.
I saw it in limited once.
Really?
Yeah.
In limited? Wow.
Yeah.
There were stories of the Pro Tour.
Jeremy, that was at an F&M draft where it was 2 guys that don't play very much playing against each other, and the one guy casted. There it went.
I assume he won the game.
I can't remember.
I believe Jeremy's chiming in saying that yes, in fact, he did cast it once. So I know I've never casted for its mana cost. I know I've never seen someone do that. But the stories were flying around Pro Tour Hawaii about casting Progenitus for the 5-color mirror. For the people who didn't have Lightning for their deck. So, we'll see. Oh, they have a
2-minute extension.
Yep.
Still heavy favor to James.
Yep.
And in fact, this might actually be better news for James. It's much easier for James to win in, let's say, 5 minutes now than it is for him to win in 3.
Yeah, it's probably harder for him to win on like turn 5 or 6 than it is for him to win on like turn 8 or so,
And I don't even know if it's possible for Tim to win, even if both players are playing at a fast, reasonable pace.
Yeah, let's see. What is the first turn that... He can probably not win until absolute earliest 6 or 7 is my guess. Vendilion Click is not the fastest clock in the world. Batterskull off Stoneforge. It's 5. It's 4 turns after 3. Maybe 6, fastest I can see him killing. It's 5... 9. Yeah, he can kill on 6 at the earliest, I believe. So, that's absolute fastest possible draw on both sides. So I don't really see
But the ways for Tim to get to that fast draw, all it takes for James to stop that from happening is putting a
Lightning
couple
bolts.
of dorks into play just for a turn
Yeah.
or two, a lightning bolt here or there.
Whereas James it's this fight over natural order.
Yeah. And heck, James, because he has Tarmogoyf,
James
can
does-
actually just do it in a different kind of way as well.
Yeah, the real beatdown plan. You know,
Yeah.
Tarmogoyf and Yolink like attack.
Yeah. I mean, previous level blue in extended a while back
That was what
like,
they did.
Yeah, Tarmogoyf, click sometimes.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's what some of the Bant decks, you know, like just very much rely on that. James's Grand Prix winning deck. That's how he was killing people.
Mutavault versus Tropical Island into Noble Hierarch.
Yeah.
Tim knows he has to do this quickly. Attacks for 2.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a Tarmogoyf.
And another Noble
And
Hire.
a Noble Hierarch. Cast Brainstorm.
Players know they're short on time. James is probably going to send back this Ancient Grudge, I think. There's no indication of a Stoneforge Mystic, so I can't see it being that great here. Let's see.
Waiting for this Brainstorm to fully resolve so we can see how the turn gets pushed out.
Okay. Fetch land. Gonna get Volk. Play Goyf.
Players, that is time in your round. Time in the round. Legacy open. Time.
So Tim here has to. There's a main phase Vendilion click. I think Tim might. I don't know. This could get interesting.
Yeah, show me your hand. It's Grudge, Bolts. Is that Misstep? And
Probably a click, I think.
I can't tell.
Yeah,
You
that's
might-
a click.
Okay.
Yep, click getting shipped right to the bottom. James draws a card, draws another card for his turn. Probably going to just lightning bolt down this Vendilion click that's in play, force through the damage on the Might not even need to. Might just be a 3-power Goyf that gets to crack in. Probably just want to bolt the Goyf. It's the best way to not lose this game. Yep. Or bolt a... Yeah, bolt the Vendilion click. Wrong card. Bolting the Goyf, not what you want. Crunches in for instant land creature. So 2 3-power Goyfs in play right now.
Right.
I believe that was 4 damage that turn. Puts Tim to 16. Yeah, I don't think that Noble Hierarch swung in, so yeah. James draws a Trop. Debating whether to bash with one or both. If he bashes with just one, it gets to not die to the Mutavaults, but if he bashes with both, he can trade with the Mutavault. Trade situation doesn't come up. Probably better to attack with the one, which is what he did, bringing Tim to 12. Attacking with both means that it goes the same size next turn, you know, same attack you're making, just no reason to trade Mutavault for Goyf there.
Another land, single Goyf attack again.
Yep.
Should knock Tim to 8.
Yep, good old Exalted, doing its job. Tim has a Jace, a third Mutavault, a Force.
Third Mutavault.
Plays a Jace, the Mind Sculptor. I think James drew another Vendilion click. Goyf gets bounced. Yeah, this looks like an end-step Vendilion click. Opting to leave up the red mana. May as well represent the Bolt.
Vendilion Click is cast by James. Tim.
I think Tim forces
Can't be
and
happy.
swords that Tarmogoyf maybe? I don't know what he has in hand. He might not have a blue card. Yep, now they are on extra turns. I believe James should have the first turn. That's a Force of Will pitching a Mental Misstep, or Jace.
Drops Tim down to 7.
Yep, said Mental Misstep because James has one of those in his hand that's going to protect against the Force. Or I mean, it's the swords up. Mixing up cards. Oh, wall on guys. Mixing up. Yeah.
It's once you've been talking about Magic.
Yeah.
At this point, I think we're on
Enough.
hour 20 or so, it can be hard to talk.
Yeah.
In comes Tarmogoyf. Mutavault is created. Mutavault is not grudgeable. It is not
No,
a mana.
it's not a Mishra's
it's not a
Factory.
Mishra's Factory.
Good thing that is not a Mishra's Factory for Tim, or he would have lost. Goif's going to come down. This is turn 1, I believe. Might be turn 2. That might be what that looks like, a die up there. Jace brainstorms.
Tim's struggling here just to get a draw. He's got 2 Mutavaults to be able to help defend himself.
I think he probably should have bounced one of the Goifs and just kept chumping with Mutavaults, just get the draw. It's not like you're playing for the win at this point. Brainstorm
Main
off
phase
the
brainstorm.
top. Off of the outlying whiteboarder duel.
Players, there's about 10 minutes remaining in building registration. 10 minutes remaining.
Resolves.
Another grudge.
Yeah, these ancient grudges are not too hot right now. Let's see. James debating what the last card to put back is. I can see the Noble Hierarch going back. That's reasonable. You probably want to send both Goyfs at the Jace. Even though you have to trade one for the Mutavault, that's acceptable.
Honestly, I would consider sending both Goyfs at Tim.
It's not lethal, though.
I understand, but you're not drawn to a bolt afterwards.
He's not even 4. I don't think there's a sorcery.
Isn't there?
No visions this game. Was there a Ponder? I don't think there was a Ponder.
You're right. You're right.
They're 3. As far as I know, they were 3/4s, and they stayed 3/4s the whole game.
Fair
There's
enough.
the whole issue with 2 Goyfs attacking into 2 Mutavaults being a bad play earlier. So yeah, I don't think it's changed. So
Right. You're right. You're
if they were
totally
4,
right.
if they were 4s, I would for sure just slam both to the face. Tim has to chump one of them with a Mutavault, and it's actually just a chump block.
He's gonna go both at the Jace.
Yep, I think that's correct. Trade Goyf for Mutavault and Jace. Though Tim's probably going to try and swords one of the Goyfs. This is going to turn into a misstep fight. Does Tim have a misstep of his own? Yes, he does. Debates whether he wants to walk into Daze or whether he wants to pay the 2 life. Misstep right back. Noble Heart's going to be tapped for the 3rd misstep of the turn, which means that Swords is currently not resolving. Okay, so Jace is going to die, and I'm assuming that Tim's going to... You know, if I was Tim, it might be reasonable... No, Goyfs get the Forge next turn. You have to... Yeah, stay face effects are Planeswalkers. Okay, there we go. So this all resolves correctly, so Tarmogoyf doesn't grow before... Or because Jace dies, but before it would... Yeah.
Damage is all simultaneous.
Yep. So this is turn 3. So Jace is going to die, and a Tarmogoyf is going to die as well.
Or no, he didn't block with anything.
Yep. Maybe his goal here is just get the draw, don't die next turn.
Well, he wants, I think, to if he doesn't block anything, then he's got 2 Mutavaults, so they can both block next turn.
Yeah. Whereas if he double blocks a Goyf, there's a chance that like one of his bolts gets bolted, they're both dead, and then
Yes.
he's just very possibly dead.
He's either 4/5, so all it would take is a Noble Hierarch and a burn spell.
Or just a Noble Hierarch, right?
Well, I mean, like, you need the burn spell to kill off the remaining Mutavault.
Not if he has the bolt. The bolt gets rid of both blockers, and he has 2 Goyfs there. So that's
I'm talking about the play you were talking about, why the Goyf wouldn't be dead.
Yeah.
Different point in the game. Threads of Disloyalty.
So if Let's see. Tim can Red Blast. Is that a Dried Arbor?
It's a Dried Arbor at the end of the turn.
Yep. His hand's an Ancient Grudge. Lightning Bolt does not do it. It's a 5-power Goyf, yeah. Assuming he attacks with it alone. That's a Jite. Obviously, one turn off of basically winning the game.
It's a draw.
Yeah, I think they're just gonna draw. Let's see if we can get an overhead shot so we can see what the match slip says as they're signing it. It looks like 1-1-1. That is a draw.
Yep, draw.
Okay, so James was close to victory there, but Tim had outs. He had outs to crush him, so...
He just needed a few more moments in order to be able to make that happen.
Yeah, it was really close there.
For those of you who are just joining us, we just finished round 5.
Yeah.
3 rounds left in this Legacy tournament, the Star City Games Open Series here live in
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
That's right. That's right. I'm Adrian Sullivan.
And I'm already relaxed.
Welcome. Welcome. This has been a great day of Magic. We just saw a really, really great matchup. 2 champions.
Yeah.
One a Grand Prix champion.
Won a Star City Open champion from a couple weeks back.
And they were kind of battling with decks that they, I think at least with James. With James has kind of made his name for a lot of people with playing